Hey, for you to join me. Hey, I'm just recapping from today today's worship service. I'm just recapping kind of what we went over in our lesson this morning. We're in the lesson of faith, and we're going to be talking about faith, a series of faith. We've been talking about faith for the rest of this year, and in talking about faith, we were looking at Numbers 13 about the children of Israel and how they came to the Canaan's land, and Moses sent out the 12 spies. Y'all know about the story. But interesting thing about Tboc journey and how when we first started off 10 years ago. This is actually a 10-year anniversary for us this year. Looking back 10 years ago, it wasn't easy when we first started. Don't ever think that when you see things like buildings and houses and properties that it all came easy. Man, that is so far from the truth that anything came easy. Everything came by, of course, trusting God, all God, a little bit of us and all God. And so we just had faith in the Lord. We had faith in the vision in which He gave us, and we just started getting it done. But along the way, we made a lot of failures. We did a lot of things backwards and wrong, but then we course correct and started doing things better. But one thing that I can definitely remember, going back at the very beginning when we first started, we had a lot of flyers. We said, well, we're going to go ahead and just launch out Tboc, and we launched a Sunday before Easter. It was like April of 2010. And we decided that we were going to go ahead and have a place that we was going to launch in, and we thought we was going to be there for a good while, because we said, man, we might as well get somewhere where we was going to be still. But it didn't work that way. It didn't work that way where we was just going to be somewhere that we can be still. So we actually rented a place, and we was only able to rent that place for that day. And funny thing about that place that we rented, we didn't pay anybody for that day. We were supposed to pay the Girls Inc. Build organization some rent for that particular Sunday, but we didn't. We actually, that very first Sunday that we was meeting, we had a DJ, we had a lot of groups come out, and all our monies went towards that, and we didn't even have enough money to pay the rent. But that was in those very beginning days. Very beginning days. We were just getting it done. We had a plan, and we ready, fire, aim. We wasn't trying to go back and just plan, talk about it. We actually we ready, fired, then we aimed. So we aimed after we fired. So we actually met at the Girls Inc. building. From the Girls Inc. building, we went to the Omega Sci-Fi building on Goodfella Natural Bridge down in North St. Louis, and they was charging us way too much money for rent. Let me tell you that. And from there, we went from the Omega Sci-Fi building to a house out in Berkeley. We met in a basement, so we started having house church. We went from being in two buildings to actually going to a house church, because we wasn't having to spend any money in the house church. But we had people that was coming out that didn't want to be in the house church because, oh, this is not a church. You start hearing everybody say, oh, this is not a church, and this is not a church. I want to have pews, and I want to have the pulpit, and I want to be able to invite my family, and I want to be able to invite my friends. And us listening to those pressures, those voices of pressure, we moved from there. Though we wasn't paying any rent, we actually found a church building that can allow us to meet before they met. And now we're in the church building. And that was a church on 367. I think it was called Northside Christian Church. And so there was a woman preacher that they had there. And we was in the middle of a worship service the very last time that we was there at that building. We was there, we was having worship. It was going fine, and we had people coming out, and for consecutive Sundays we've been singing pretty loud, and it seemed like they was kind of getting upset that we were singing pretty loud. So, my little praise team will be singing before I come up to preach. And I was actually standing up the podium, and we had one of these loud singing Sundays, and they actually was in the middle of still singing a song while I was standing at the podium. And the preacher for their church, the woman preacher, came all the way down the aisle in the middle of our singing and came to the pulpit, which I was preaching at, and beat on the pulpit and say, "Hey, y'all too loud. Y'all too loud. Quiet down." They was back in the back sipping coffee and playing cards before church. And they said we were singing too loud. So, of course, that was our last Sunday there at that particular building. But it was a faith step. It was good while it lasted, but it had a season to it. And we went from there, we started meeting at what was called the Echo campus that was owned by the Disciples of Christ. They allowed us to meet there at the Echo campus, and we was doing some community ministry with some youth while we was there at the Echo campus, and we also met a couple of times on Sunday. That was just really short-lived because we moved from the Echo campus real quickly back to a house on Ashland. So the house that I was renting when I came back here to St. Louis, we went to that house, to the living room, and again, we weren't paying any rent as a church, but we was in a house. And again, that's not the ideal place for people that quote unquote like to have a church experience. And one thing about church planning, you gotta early get out of that church experience. If you're gonna reach the community don't care nothing about your church experience. The community really cares about like your authenticity. How real are you? And people really in the community don't care how much you know until you show them how much you care. So they don't care what kind of building you got as long as you got a big heart. And so we went from that house on Ashland in North St. Louis. And while we was there on Ashland, of course, that was a hot popping crime type neighborhood, may I add. But we survived through that. We went to the K-Life building in North St. Louis, just steady with a journey of faith. Went from the K-Life building to Half Bible Will Travel. Good guy, Pat Rankin, man, he allowed us to meet there in what they call Faith Hall back there in one of their back buildings back there. And we're like a whole 45 minutes from the city, from the target area where we want to actually meet and reach people. But now we're all the way out here in St. Louis County, and we're having to drive people and transport people all the way from the city all the way up here just to have this church experience. And so I started learning then, like, we got to shed this church experience if we're going to survive. So it's costing us in money, it's costing us in not being able to reach the context we want to reach, to just have a space, a church space, so that we can feel like we have in church. And we went from the Half Bible Will Travel building to another church building over in Centerville, Illinois. First Christian Church in Centerville, Illinois. And that church, they had maybe had eight, 9 older members. And they made an agreement with me for me to preach for them. And as I preach for them, that we can use the space. So a little group that I had, we had maybe about 20 plus people when we was at First Christian in Centerville. And so I would preach for them for their service, and then we'll meet with my church group afterwards. Tboc would meet after them. And of course, that was a short-lived situation too, because it was more church, more the same. And we was looking for the vision that God given to us, and mixing that in with where they was at wasn't working. So we moved from First Christian to the Clinton Peabody projects, as well as the John DeShields project. So we moved from the church experience to the community centers. One community center at the Clinton Peabodys and another community center at the John DeShields in East St. Louis. So we was in 2 spots. That was in 2012. So 2 years in all this moving around. So if you look at our movement, we moved 11 times. That's right. We moved 11 times. We didn't have any members. We didn't really have any money, didn't have any buildings, any vans, buses, nothing like that. And we moved 11 times. Every time we moved, we lost somebody. There was a family that didn't want to travel with us. There was somebody that say, hey, y'all moving around too much. We moved from house to church to house. And that was just confusing to people. Y'all ain't gonna never get it right. Y'all ain't gonna, but I never gave up. We never quit. And one of the things about seeing what God what God is gonna do in your life personally or in the life of your ministry is not to give up. Because it's always too soon to give up. I always say that. It's always too soon to give up. Right at the point where you're about to give up, that's where the breakthrough is about to happen. That's where everything is about to change. And so never give in to the temptation of quitting. And had we quit it, we wouldn't have been at the point where now we got over 200 baptized members 10 years later. The properties we have, the ministries we got going out in all 3 locations, and just getting able-bodied recipients off the dependency of welfare into home ownership and entrepreneurship. Hey, so and all that we've went through in the last 10 years, that's just been the tip of the iceberg. Did you hear me? That's just the tip of the iceberg. There is, I believe, the greatest and the best part of our ministry is ahead of us right now. The best part, the biggest part, the most impactful and most effective part is all ahead of us. So we moved from the Clinton Peabodys and the John DeShields, and we bought our first building. And we weren't looking for a church building. We weren't looking for, a lot of people want to look for the stained glass windows and the big steeples and the crosses. Not for us. We look for building. We look for a building that was just a regular building that no church ever met in. Because we didn't want to come behind any church that had a reputation in the community, because that was going to hinder us. So we had a neutral building that was an old pharmacy building. And that old pharmacy building, we started cleaning it up and started remodeling it, and we started having church in that building. And it was an 8,000 square foot building. So the biggest part of it we used as the sanctuary. Then we had the downstairs we used as the youth area, which we still have now. And then we have, a little family gathering room and a business room and some classrooms and kitchen and stuff in the back. So the building serves us perfectly. And we in 2013, February 2013, we bought, we got a mortgage on that building for 10 years, and we paid it off in 3 years. So in 2016, we burned the note, we paid the building off, and then we bought in 2017 our north building. And we only paid $2,000 for this building, $2,000 for the north building, all faith steps. And it was like a 6,500 square foot building, 2-story. We bought that building and it was just a shell for $2,000, but we ended up having to put in like $180,000 into the building to get it up and running and up and ready for us to use. And then just 2 years later, after we did the north building, we was gifted our Dallas building, because what we did in East St. Louis and St. Louis, I made a video, and I started sending this video all over just to get some supporters. Because as a church planner, you always got to be thinking about getting more support, raising support. Don't ever get to a point where you think you're so comfortable that, I don't need no more money. I don't need no more supporters. That's a devil's lie. You always need new supporters and more investors to do what you are called to do. And so we sent the video out about St. Louis and East St. Louis, and we sent it out to the Dallas Baptist Association and all other associations. But Dallas bit, and they called me down. We had some conversations. Some recruitment was done. It was great. There was a fit on both sides, and we actually wasn't even looking for a church building. We actually looked for some old school buildings that we was going to buy and remodel. But there was a church that had a building, and we met with them several times, and they ended up gifting the building to us. And we put a lot of work and a lot of renovation into that building. So this is just a small segment of this large journey that we've been going on for the last 10 years. So the last 10 years has been a up and down roller coaster ride, but it's been all God's grace, and it's been fun, man. I've done a lot of growing. My wife has done a lot of growing. My daughter, our team has done a lot of growing. The church, the ministry has done a lot of growing, all because we've been going on this journey in faith with God. So I want to continue to talk to you about this journey that we've gone on and we're still on. And definitely, if you want to support what we're doing, you have your option, the support buttons that's on this video. Go ahead and support us. We need your support, because our goal is to get up to 100,000 subscribers. Yeah, we're nowhere near 100,000 subscribers right now, but we want to get to 100,000 subscribers and 100,000 people that care about and in support of what we're doing in church planting, but also in the inner cities and just in general for the kingdom. So God bless you, and we want you to go ahead and become one of our supporters. God bless you.